Hello, welcome back to the channel. So I thought I'd just do a quick video just really discussing the plus points for the hobby itself. So this is why scale modelling. For me, it it's an extension of history. So I've always liked history. Waterloo figures behind me there on the old cigar cards. I've always been interested in history growing up. Number of periods, all sorts of things over the years. Now, of course, scale modelling can help with history to a point. There wasn't really any vehicles before the First World War, so it gets quite difficult on what you're going to model. So really, pre-First World War, Great War, the World War One, it was, you can really encapsulate that time period with figures, figure painting of all kinds of, busts down to small figures, whatever, even wargaming, all that sort of thing. Now, that's not really ever been for me. I like the interest for figures. I could easily collect them, but as far as sitting down and painting an army and that sort of thing, it's never really been my cup of tea, really. What I've always done is built models of aircraft and tanks, mainly tanks, growing up, and then made the switch to aircraft about 4 or 5 years ago, and then got a nice happy balance between the two. So for that, obviously, aircraft weren't really a thing, certainly military aircraft before the First World War, nor were military vehicles. So that really starts your period there. If you're looking at scale modelling, you can do civilian vehicles as well and all civilian subjects, but really it starts from kind of 1914 to modern day. That can be military, civil, all sorts. It can encapsulate aircraft, land vehicles, and sea-bearing vessels, sea-going vessels. Again, doesn't have to be military. My focus is military. I do like that connection to wars and that side of history. And I mainly focus on the First World War through to World War II, with a specific focus generally on World War II as far as the channel's concerned. In between, I've got a focus on the Spanish Civil War, and they kind of merge in. So the Spanish Civil War tends to bridge the gap between the First World War and the Second World War. So that's where I focus. Nothing like a Spitfire for me. One of the best kits ever created, if you're wondering. It really is a wonderful piece of engineering from Tamiya. So where do you begin? Why modelling? Is it cheap? I would say yes. As far as hobbies go, it can be as cheap or as expensive as you want it to be. These kits are over £100 in the UK. Obviously not a cheap kit. You don't have to buy one. It's not like if you like sport or if you like motor cars or whatever it is, you have to buy some top-end stuff generally. You don't have to in modelling. You can get a cheap knockoff airbrush off of Amazon. They look like they're going for 25 quid at the minute, with a cheap compressor that only makes a noise when you turn it on. Again, around £20. You can buy really cheap £5 model kits, or you can buy really expensive £120 model kits. It's up to you. It's what you want to build. It's what you want to put into it. Of course, we've been talking about basics and learning, and there's reasons why you wouldn't buy super cheap kits straight off to learn, because they can be difficult. There's better ways to go at it. And also, I wouldn't suggest buying top-end kits. But once you're into it and you've built a few models, maybe you've built sort of 5, 10 models, you know what you're doing now, you know whether you want to do aircraft or military ground vehicles, so tanks, then you can buy, say for tanks, you can buy a Tamiya kit one day, then you could buy a Ryefield model kit the next day. Same as aircraft, your first model could be the Tamiya Spitfire that's £19, 2 sprues, goes together in a weekend, one of the best looking kits around. And then next off you could buy an Eduard kit and have loads of features, and it takes you a long time, and you put everything into it and you show all the rivets and all the finesse and the details that come with it. So there's a lot that you can kind of put into it. You can collect 20 different sets of model paints, or you can just buy the paint when you need it. You can buy every glue going, every thinner going, every filler going, every little bit of enamel wash and everything that Ammo and AK do that helps you, and you'll have a fantastic time. Or you can buy 3 oil paints and keep them for 5 years, use the same bottle of fillers and get all the way through it. It's what you want it to be, and you can have the same effect. You can be award-winning, building a model on your kitchen table using 3 oil paints and a handful of Tamiya jars of paints, or you can have a studio with walls of paints all up and down like you'll see sometimes on YouTube, and you can have the same result. Again, not always the case for most hobbies. It's not always a level playing field. The good point is, it really boils down to you. There is a bit of artistry, I think, that goes into it. There's a little bit of skill as well that's maybe a natural thing. But most of it, I'd say probably 95% of what you need to do is learnable. It's a learnable skill. It's actually learnable art. And it's also teachable if you get the right people. So you can get there in a gradual way, and you can then develop your own skills. You can take all this information from all the people that are in this hobby, because it's so intertwined now. There's a huge community on Facebook, YouTube, online, physically it shows. It's a fantastic thing for that. So I'm struggling to come up with many hobbies that really look like this one, or even challenge it in the same way, or are even, applicable as a comparison. Because there's so much in this hobby, and you can take all of it, nothing, or as much as you want. It's all down to you, and I find that quite a tricky thing to kind of align with anything else. So it's well worth doing, I think, if it's something you're thinking about. If you want to spend more time at home, or you don't get the chance to go out so much, you're thinking of doing something at home, scale modelling should be there. I would suggest you try it, even if you don't think it might be for you. Just give it a go. Just buy a cheap kit, start with some spray paints out in the garden, put the decals on, see the 3D reality of what you've got in your hands, and then see if that makes you think you want to build another one. Going back to what I was saying at the beginning, one of the main things that gets me going is I'll listen to an audio book, or I'll watch a documentary, or watch something about history linked to... I've got a fascination with the war in the East, in the Second World War. I don't know why, I just come back to it all the time. I'm on my third audio book, which I think is a 25-hour audio book. I don't know what more I can learn, but I just find it fascinating. And then that makes me think, oh, I'd like to do a 109E from Barbarossa, or I'd like to do a Panther tank fighting in Kursk in 1943, or on the retreat in 1944, or watch something about Normandy, see the D-Day landings, and think, right, I really need to do a Sherman. And I don't know any other way you could do that. Maybe if you're into painting, drawing, or writing books or something like that, that might get you going. But when you're sat there watching the documentary, to be able to go in and build a model of something, the iconic Spitfire soaring over the Mark 8 here, an Australian RAAF Mark 8 Spitfire. I mean, is there anything more glorious? Chipped, odd roundels where they've painted over roundels and things like that. There's just so much to it. There's so much character and so much information you can portray from a 3D rendering of something that took part in these large battles, that I don't think I couldn't do it. It goes like that. The enthusiasm wanes. When it's hot, it's quite difficult to do this thing, but when it's a winter, what a fantastic hobby. Just to spread it, a First World War biplane, fully rigged in 1/32, a Wingnut Wings X. I know they've gone, but they're still around. Lots of us have them in our stashes, and you still see them at shows. Is there anything better than a 1/48 for a 1/32 biplane, lozenge with the German pattern, or an RFC fighter? I don't know. I don't think there is. I don't know. A huge diorama, tanks, figures, all these buildings. It's just fantastic. So there's a lot to be had from the hobby. There's a few little negative things that maybe come up on Facebook here and there, and you know what the great thing is? You can just ignore it and you just move on past. It doesn't matter. People have their opinions, and you will get that, of course, if you share it on Facebook, if you share it on YouTube. Of course, I'm open to criticism. I'm putting stuff out on there, obviously. So I think with all that, why modelling? Because it's one of probably the best hobbies that are around. I truly mean that. I've done a few in the past, and I keep coming back to this one more than others. I'm a keen fisherman, but again, I don't always want to go outside and be cold and get wet feet and do this, that, and everything else. But sometimes I really do. You can pick that up and leave it, but it's out there. I've got to go and drive. I've got to do this, that, and everything else. It costs money just to keep up with it. For instance, you've got to buy new tackle and all this sort of thing. But I think again that would probably link up to this. You can make that expensive or not. I've tried golf. Very expensive hobby from what I can see. Extremely expensive. Playing football on the weekend. Very expensive. It costs mount. It's and it's more of a community thing. And with all of these things, maybe a photo when you go fishing or a scorecard when you play golf, there isn't a lot left after. Once you've done it, you don't have much left. But once you built this and it's in a display cabinet, you have that. I don't know. You have to make up your own mind. But for me, fantastic hobby, and I would suggest anyone just gives it a go. It's very low entry costs. You could probably get started even with an airbrush and some paint, have it all done well under £100. You could build a model kit basically for probably under £10. If you wanted to do it really properly, so that's chucking everything at it, you could do it for under £100. That's a very low startup cost, and if you don't like it, you can still sell half of that stuff and probably get 50 quid back. So, make of it what you will. I'd love to know your comments down below. I'd be very interested to hear any feedback and what you think and why you would think this is a good hobby, or maybe not. Some pros and cons, maybe we could go along with that. If you like what you see and you'd like to continue with this content, then hit the subscribe button down below if you haven't already. If you'd like to support the channel, you can do that by following a couple of links in the description below. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.